Hey there, and welcome. You know that word inflation, right? We hear it all the time. It's why your coffee costs more, why groceries are getting pricier. It's a huge deal. But have you ever actually stopped and thought, how do they even calculate that number? Well, today, we're going to dive in and unpack that very mystery.
So you turn on the news and there it is. Inflation hit 6%. Okay, but what does that actually mean? For you, for me, for businesses? Is it just this one single number? Well, turns out the answer is a bit more complicated and honestly, a lot more fascinating.
All right, to get to the bottom of this, we need to look at the two main measuring sticks economists use. I like to think of them as two different thermometers for the economy. You've got one that takes the temperature way back at the factory, and another one that checks it right where you and I are shopping. Okay, so on one side you have the Wholesale Price Index, or WPI for short. This one keeps an eye on the prices of goods sold in bulk. You know, the prices businesses pay each other. Then, on the other side, you've got the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, and this is the one that tracks the prices you and I see on the price tags at the store.
But here's where it gets kind of interesting. That WPI, it only looks at goods. We're talking stuff like steel, cement, wheat. It completely leaves out services. So what about your haircut or a doctor's visit? Why would it just ignore that massive part of the economy?
Well, the logic is actually pretty simple when you think about it. WPI is all about tracking physical things, tangible goods that businesses trade in bulk. I mean, you can't exactly sell 1,000 haircuts wholesale, right? And besides, services are just, well, they're tricky to standardize. A fancy hotel stay isn't the same as a budget one. So WPI sticks to goods to keep it clean and simple. And don't worry, those services, they get picked up by our other tool.
Okay, this table really lays it all out. Look here. WPI, just goods. CPI, goods and services. And check out the weight of food. It's way higher in the CPI, almost 45%. Why? Because that's a huge chunk of what we all spend our money on every month. And that really gets to the heart of it. WPI is great for spotting broad economic trends, but the CPI, that's the big one. It's what the Reserve Bank of India watches like a hawk because it reflects the real cost of living for everyday people.
So CPI is the main event, right? The one that matters most to us. But, wait for it, it's not that simple. There's not just one CPI. Nope, it's more like a whole family of indexes, and each one has a very specific job. So let's meet the family. First up, meet the CPI for industrial workers, or CPI-WI. This one, as our little animated friend here shows, keeps tabs on the cost of living for folks in factories, mines, and so on. And its biggest job? It's used to calculate something called dearness allowance. You can just think of it as a cost of living adjustment for government employees, making sure their pay keeps up with rising prices.
Next in the family is the CPI for agricultural laborers, the CPI-AL. Now this one is so important because it focuses on some of the most vulnerable households in the country. Think about it. A huge part of their income goes directly to food. So, naturally, this index gives food a really high weight. And its main purpose? It's a key tool for setting minimum wages for farm work.
And to round out our specialists, we have the CPI for rural laborers, or CPI-RL. This one fills a really important gap. It tracks costs for rural workers who are not in agriculture. So we're talking about construction workers, for example. The data from this helps the government figure out the best policies for rural development, because they know exactly what price pressures these specific families are dealing with. All right, so we've met the specialists. Now it's time for the main event, the headliner, the one you always hear about on the news, CPI Combined.
Yeah, this is the big one. It's called Combined because it pulls together data from both rural and urban households to give us the most complete picture of inflation in the country. And because of that, it's the official benchmark for the RBI. When they're thinking about interest rates, this is the number they're glued to. It's basically the nation's economic pulse.
So what's actually in this basket that they measure? Just look at this chart. That enormous slice right there, food and beverages, at almost 46%. It's huge. That tells you right away that the price of groceries has a massive say in the final inflation number. The next biggest chunk is miscellaneous, and that's where you'll find other essentials like transportation, education, and healthcare.
Now, to know if prices are going up, you have to compare them to something, right? That's where a base year comes in. It's like a starting line. For the CPI Combined, that starting line is the year 2012. So every inflation number you see is just saying, hey, this is how much prices have changed since back in 2012.
Okay, so we've got WPI and CPI down, but to really see the full picture, there's one more piece to the puzzle we need to add. It's called the Producer Price Index, or PPI.
Let's put all three of these together and watch how a price change actually travels through the economy from the moment a product is made to the moment you buy it.
Let's follow a simple loaf of bread on its journey, okay? Step 1. The baker finishes baking and sells the loaf to a distributor for 20 rupees. That's the price right at the factory gate. That's what the PPI measures. Okay, step 2. The distributor then sells that loaf in a big batch to a local grocery store for 25 rupees. That price, in the middle, that's the WPI. And finally, step 3, you walk into the store and buy that loaf for 30 rupees. That final price you pay, that's the CPI. See, each index is just capturing a different snapshot along the way.
And this table just wraps it all up nice and neat. PPI, the factory gate. WPI, the middleman, the distributor. CPI, the final stop, what you and I pay. And just remember that little quirk. WPI is the odd one out. It's the only one that doesn't track services.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's that when you hear about inflation, it's not just one single number. It's really a story told by different narrators. Each index gives you a different piece of that story, from the factory to the warehouse, all the way to your kitchen table.
So now you know how the country's inflation is measured. But that leaves us with one last question, and this one's for you. The official CPI basket has hundreds of things in it, but your shopping cart is totally unique to you, right? So what's the real inflation rate for your life? That's something to think about. Thanks for joining me.